Hello, welcome back to Fred in the Shed, and in this video we're going to do some testing and review this Grunwerg. Yeah, you heard me right, Grunwerg. A bit of a strange name, isn't it? But a Grunwerg DrinkPod vacuum flask. Bought this one in from Amazon, came to just under £12, sort of delivered, so it's not too expensive. I think the biggest selling feature of these drink pods is that they come in a variety of quite sort of colourful and modern colours. I think there's a colour here that would probably sort of suit everyone. They do come in traditional sort of colours as well. You can have brushed kind of stainless steel, or also sort of shiny kind of chrome, which is, say, like traditional. I went for the matte black myself. Looks a bit like a large can of deodorant, but we'll be having a look at that sort of finish in a moment. Like all stainless steel flasks, it is completely unbreakable. You haven't got to worry about dropping it or anything like that. The manufacturers claim that this flask will keep liquid hot for up to 6 hours and liquid cold for 24. So we're going to be testing the hot side of that. The flask is available in two sizes, 200 and 300 millilitres, and I went for the larger 300 millilitres, which is about a full-sized cup. So here it is, straight out of the box. Quite a modern sort of grey kind of box, showing all the colours on the back. And here's the flask itself. Now the first thing that kind of concerned me, it's got this paper stuck around the outside, so I was hoping that that wasn't going to be too difficult to get off, and I was definitely hoping it wasn't going to leave any residue on the rather nice sheen of the sort of matte black. It is sort of glued on there, but yeah, I was a little bit reluctant to get this off, but I was pleased to say that after a little bit of effort it did come off nice and clean. So the flask itself, and it is finished really nice. It's very sort of satin black kind of finish here, just with the sort of logo in a kind of a grey sort of paint, says sort of drink pod, and yeah, it's sort of, you know, it still looks very much quite the modern sort of thing. Bottom of the flask there is sort of beveled, which I find a little bit odd, and yeah, you know, I mean, I'm sure it's fine when it's got some liquid in it, but it does make it a little bit unstable when you sort of put it at a table. I'm not quite sure what was the idea behind having that sort of bevel at the bottom. Undoing the cap here, it's worth noting that this flask doesn't come with any type of sort of cup. Like a more traditional flask, you have to sort of swig straight out of it, but the cap itself, you've got, you know, quite a nice sort of silicone seal. This is hand wash only, by the way. You know, I've found in the past putting these things through the dishwasher tends to destroy the seal, but the whole flask, and the, you know, it says on the instructions it is a hand wash item only. The little sort of grey plastic lip seal here does remove for easy cleaning, because you will get some sort of residue of liquid behind that, and there is a second silicone seal which seals everything nice and tight. So yeah, you know, straight out of the box, it's quite an impressive looking flask. I say it does look quite modern, quite nicely designed, if you can have that sort of thing with a flask. And yeah, other than the bottom being slightly beveled, which I'm not quite keen about, but yeah, other than that, it's yeah, quite impressive for sort of, you know, £12. Not too much money at all. Now I'm going to be comparing this to my old flask. This was a very sort of cheapie that came from a supermarket. I think it was less than £5. Very much a traditional kind of sort of flask. It does come with a cup which you can sort of use, but I was never that much keen on this kind of push in, push out sort of pouring spout that always seemed to get quite sort of dirty and clogged up. So the drink pod claims to be able to keep liquids hot for up to 6 hours. So I'm going to put that to the test here. I'm going to put it up against my old cheapy kind of supermarket sort of flask. I mean, they're pretty much both the same design, you know, twin walled and sort of thermo insulated with foam, so they're going to pretty much work the same, but it'd be interesting to make sure that it at least can compete. So as you saw there, I've poured out some boiling water into these two plastic beakers, and just using my little laser thermometer here, just checking the temperature, and yeah, each one has sort of just dropped down to just below the 90 degrees Celsius mark. Now what I plan to do here is nothing particularly complicated. You know, this is Fred in the Shed, yeah, you know, you get it, a guy in a shed. Now what we're going to do, we're just going to pour this just freshly boiled water here into each flask, and then I'm going to put each flask in the fridge. The fridge is approximately about 3 degrees Celsius, so we're going to put it in the fridge and try and keep it in the fridge for about sort of 4 hours, give or take. That's quite a severe test when you think about it. You know, probably within a normal working day or even a school day, if you were giving this to your kids, this flask would probably be, you know, inside for quite some time. It's quite unusual that it would be sort of kept outside at sort of 3 degrees consistently throughout 4 hours. So that's the test that we're going to do. So then we'll get it back out, and then we'll measure the temperature, and we'll see how much sort of temperature has been lost. So keep an eye on the time now, just putting it in just after sort of 4 p.m. in the afternoon. And yeah, here we are, we're coming back to it just before 8 o'clock here in the evening. So just under the 4 hours at a consistent 3 degrees centigrade. Right, so going to get these flasks out of the fridge. Now this test I'm going to do here, I don't know if this is really relevant really, but I thought I'd do it anyway. Just pointing the laser temperature probe here at each flask, and as you can see the drink pod there just around about sort of 10 to 11 degrees Celsius, but the stainless steel flask warmed up quite quickly straight out of the fridge. You're already showing 20 degrees. I don't know if that's the hot liquid already sort of warming the outside, or just the flask was getting up to room temperature quicker. Not quite sure about that. Right, now for the acid test, crunch time. So all we're going to do here is just reverse what we did earlier. We're now going to pour the water from the flasks back in to the yellow beakers. Now, going to get the laser thermometer back in a moment, but first I just want to do a basic sort of finger test. I was quite surprised here to find that in both cases, both sort of flasks here, have kept the water hot enough that it was difficult to keep my fingers in for any sort of length of time. I think the drink pod may be just fractionally sort of warmer at this stage, but certainly this would give you a very hot scalding cup of tea or coffee. Right, crunch time. Let's get the laser thermometer back in, and we'll start with the more traditional stainless steel flask here. And do you know, it's done pretty well here. We're over 62 degrees, around about sort of 62.3 or 4. Moving over to the drink pod itself, it is slightly warmer, 60 sort of 3.3, 60 sort of 2.9. As we sort of go lower, of course the heat will rise in the plastic beaker. But yeah, 63.3. I mean, both of these sort of beakers here, if you took a sort of big gulp out of this without letting them cool down, you're going to scald your mouth. So I think that's a pretty good test, seeing as they survive 4 hours in a fridge at 3 degrees. So to sum this test up, well, obviously both flasks, perform pretty much the same as you would expect. They're sort of the same sort of design. So the drink pod itself, I think it's a nice design. I quite like this sort of matte sort of slate black, if you like it. I think it will mark quite easy. This particular colour I've chosen, it does sort of a bit like a blackboard. It will pick up the odd sort of mark, I feel. I think overall the best selling feature of this flask is the fact it does come in quite a nice variety of colours, and this will appeal to the more fashion conscious amongst us, and maybe perhaps to the younger people. Maybe you've got kids at school and you're trying to get them to take a flask into school and they're a bit reluctant. Well, if they can sort of choose quite a bright, vibrant colour, that might be what you need to sort of tip the deal over the edge. But anyway, I'm quite pleased with this. Less than £12 delivered, and once it had some liquid in it, by the way, it did sort of stabilise itself up, but it is a little bit unstable when it gets sort of low on liquid, and that beveled edge at the bottom, not quite sure what was going on there. Anyway, I will leave a link to this to Amazon in the description if you're interested in making a purchase. And yeah, well, that's about it. As always, thanks for your view time, thanks for watching the video, stay safe, and of course I'll catch you all on the next one.